Have you ever had an awesome voice lesson only to go home and find that you can't replicate the experience? This is the number one complaint that I hear from singers. So if this resonates with you, stay tuned because I'm sharing my step-by-step process of what I do in a voice lesson so that you can have more success when you're practicing and teach yourself. Now, everything I do as a voice teacher is based off of this idea that your whole body is the instrument. If you haven't already downloaded my free guide, The Three-Tiered Approach to Becoming a Better Singer, make sure to download it because it's going to give you this step-by-step process of understanding how your instrument works, which is what I'm going to be talking about here today. If you have my free guide already, then you know that there are three primary components to your instrument. So one of the most difficult parts about practicing and just teaching yourself how to sing in general is the diagnostic part, right? Like when things aren't working, figuring out why, like what the problem is, right? That's diagnostics. And that's what I'm doing as a voice teacher. So having a framework to work within of understanding these three components of your instrument just gives you a bit of a guide so that you can go through and go, okay, is this happening? Yes or no? And then move on to the next thing. And then that's going to help lead you to solutions when things don't feel like they're working out very well. The first component of your instrument is your breath. That's the thing that's going to power the sound. And you've probably watched lots of videos on breathing for singing or breath support. I'm going to make sure to link mine in the description. But that's the first area of your body that you kind of want to look at and go, how is my breath working? And in regards to your breath, tension or tightness anywhere in the body can potentially inhibit the free movement of breath. So when you're thinking about how your breath is working, you want to sort of scan your body and consider, am I holding tension in any part of my body that is not necessary for the sound I'm trying to produce? And if you don't know, just see what happens if you eliminate some of that tension, if you move around a little bit, right? So that first thing to look at is, what's my breath doing? One thing I always tell people is try one thing and then try the polar opposite. So in regards to your breath, try exhaling more. Try giving more air to the sound and see what that does. And then do the opposite. Try holding some air back. See what that does. And again, for ways to do this, you're going to want to check out my video on breath support. But the long and the short of it is, sometimes we need more air, sometimes we need less air. So that's the first thing you're going to check in with on your step-by-step process of diagnosing, like, why is my voice not working the way I want it to right now? The second primary component of your instrument are your vocal cords. Now, your vocal cords are a little bit more difficult to kind of assess the situation with. Breathing, we've generally got like a pretty good handle on like air going in, air going out, and ways that we can change and manipulate that. Most of us don't have a ton of awareness of our vocal cords, so this component I think is the trickiest one. But one thing you want to consider is how tightly closed your vocal cords are. So if you make this sound, like a really pressed sound, go eh, that's a really tight closure of the vocal cords. And then make a really airy sound, go ooh, ooh. That's a really loose closure of the vocal cords. So again, with this idea of play with one extreme and then maybe play with the other to figure out where you might be out of balance, try singing with more closure of the vocal cords. So try aiming for a more pressed sound. And then do the opposite. Try aiming for a more breathy sound and see if that doesn't start to lead you down a path that's helpful. And I'm not suggesting you should ultimately sing pressed or sing breathy, though maybe you'd like to. I'm just suggesting that going to those places might help you figure out where the imbalance is occurring in your singing so that you can get your voice to do what you want it to do. The other component of the vocal cords has to do with how like long and thin they are or short and thick they are. And again, this is a harder one to manipulate. This comes down to the topic of registration. So if you've heard the terms like chest voice, head voice, etc., I have a video on that, demystifying vocal registers. I will also link that in the description. But one thing you can do when it comes to registration is try to just aim the sound into a certain part of your body, and that will put your vocal cords into a different setting, right? So if I aim the sound up in my head and I make like a really hooty sound and I go woo, 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 that's a different configuration of my vocal cords than if I aim the sound in my chest and go ah, 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 right? So you can play with aiming the sound into different places, your chest, your face, your head, to help adjust the setting of the vocal cords and see if that also might help you kind of figure out like what direction you need to be moving toward in order to make the sound you want to make. The final component of your instrument is your mouth and throat. And that's really your resonating space as a singer. This is a fun one to play with because, again, you've got a good amount of control over this. So play with opening your mouth into different shapes. Right? Open it big, make it small, round your lips, right? Or make them go wide. Just be curious and experiment. The more you can just try out different things, the more you're going to get led down a path that potentially shows you what it is that's missing in your singing. The other thing to consider is your tongue. So if your tongue is up like this, that might not be super helpful. If it's pulling back, you might want to move it forward. So that's another thing to consider when you think about your mouth. Think about your jaw. And the last thing to sort of think about is your throat, which would be your larynx, which you can move up and down. So if you take your hand to your like Adam's apple, which I know it's hard to find on women, but you're looking for this point here where your vocal cords meet. If you swallow, you'll feel it go up. If you yawn, you'll feel it go down, right? So you could try making a sound with a yaw and going, ah, ah, ah. That's going to give you kind of a lowered larynx. And then swallow, sort of feel that position, right? And then see if you can sort of hold it in that position of like, and you can feel your larynx go up. So that's another thing that you can play with to lead you down the path. Now, when it comes to the throat, the vowel you choose has a big impact on the position of the larynx and the shape of the throat and all that. So play with different vowels as well. You don't just have to sing the words that were given to you in the song. I mean, eventually you will. But to practice, try singing on different vowels. That's going to change the shape of your throat. It's going to change the shape of your mouth. And it might, again, show you like, oh, I need more of an ah shape here. And then eventually you start to tilt the words toward an ah shape. So that's the third component of your instrument. When you're going through this step-by-step process, right, you're just going through it. How's the breath? What are my vocal cords doing? And then what is my mouth and my throat doing? And you're just going to be curious. You're going to try lots of different things. And as you do that, as you experiment, that's how you can start to diagnose and go, oh, this is maybe what was not working, and then this is the direction I want to move toward. The last thing I will say is there's no substitute for a second set of ears. Don't get me wrong. We don't hear ourselves the way other people hear us. So I certainly don't mean to suggest that having private lessons is not helpful or necessary. It is, but if I as a voice teacher am doing my job correctly, I should eventually be making myself obsolete here, right? Or maybe like you only need to come and check in like once every month or every couple of months, right? But in regards to having a second set of ears, one thing you can do for yourself to just set yourself up for better practicing in general is to video yourself. It's very hard to be the singer and then be the teacher at the same time. So my suggestion to you when doing all of this is commit to whatever it is you're doing and video it. So if you're committing toward moving more air through the sound, take a video of yourself singing, move more air through the sound or through whatever it is you're singing, right? Give yourself more air and then watch the video. Now you can put yourself in that role of being the teacher and saying, did that work or did that not work? So that way you can really commit to like being in your body, doing the action, and then you can take a second to step back, watch and listen and assess the situation. That's the best way I know how to teach yourself. I hope you guys found these tips helpful. Again, I know it's really tricky to learn how to sing on your own, but when you have a step-by-step guide, I think it's a heck of a lot easier. So again, make sure to download my free 3-tiered approach to becoming a better singer. Comment, like, subscribe for more videos like this, and happy singing.